10 senseless crimes that highlight South Africa's crime crisis. Welcome to Creepshow, where we delve into the darker side of reality. Today, we confront a story not often told, a story of a country on the brink, where violence has become a daily reality and the innocent are left to suffer. This is not just a tale of horror. It's a desperate call for awareness. South Africa, a land of breathtaking landscapes, diverse cultures, and extraordinary wildlife. A place where you can stargaze under skies that seem endless, explore coastlines dotted with ancient shipwrecks, or come face to face with the majestic great white shark. But beneath the surface of these incredible experiences lies a darker, far more troubling reality. In recent days, a tragic event occurred just 13.7 miles, 22 kilometers, from where I live. Another senseless murder, another life lost. It's moments like these that remind me, now is not the time to wax poetic about this country. We cannot, we must not, turn a blind eye to the horrors happening here every single day. The situation in South Africa is spiraling out of control. A hapless government, more interested in lining their pockets than protecting their citizens, has left the people of this country vulnerable and afraid. Women in rural areas, desperate and hungry, are driven to kill their children and themselves because they receive no help, no resources. Every day, around 84 people are murdered in South Africa. There is no protection, there is no safe haven, there is only fear, suffering, and death. And often, that death comes at the hands of those who were supposed to love and protect. Parents, partners, trusted individuals. This is not a list of serial killers or the worst crimes in history. This is the harrowing story of a country falling apart. A place where criminals and evil people roam free, knowing there will be no consequences for their actions. It's 10 tragic tales of ordinary adults and children, whose days started like any other, but ended in horrific violence, simply because chaos reigns here. As you listen to these stories, take a moment to reflect on this stark reality. These were living, breathing human beings, people with dreams, hopes, and futures. Until they weren't. Number 10. Chevonne Rusch. Stefan van Niekerk entered a Primrose clinic in Germiston, which is located in the province of Gauteng, on May 11, 2022. At the time, he was carrying Chevonne Rusch, the daughter of his fiancée, who was 2 years old. As the medical professionals raced to assist the child, they noticed that the child was not moving. During the course of their examination of the young girl, they came to the conclusion that Chevonne had been subjected to such severe abuse and beatings that they were unable to save her. Shortly after that, she passed away, and Stefan was taken into custody. The little body of Chevonne was covered in 49 bruises, and the cause of death was recorded as bleeding on the brain that she had sustained. The situation was about to get considerably more dire, despite the fact that it appeared to be a straightforward case, and that Stefan would be sentenced to prison for the murder. Rochelle Botha, Chevonne's mother, was taken into custody not long after the news of her daughter's death went around the community. On November 17, 2023, both Stefan and Rochelle were found guilty of committing murder, sexual assault, neglecting a kid, and abusing a child both verbally and physically. A sentence of only 25 years in jail was handed down to Rochelle and Stefan, despite the fact that she had committed heinous acts against her kid and had permitted her fiancé to commit the same violations. The fact that Rochelle, who is only 24 years old, was complicit in the murder of her young girl, who was blonde and blue-eyed, was not something that she expressed any regret about. Instead, she swiftly adjusted to life in jail and joined a gang that bullies other inmates during her time there. In addition to this, she continues to engage in drug use, just as she did while she was supposed to be protecting children. Number 9. Uyinene Mrwetyana. On an ordinary day in August of 2019, Uyinene Mrwetyana, who was then 19 years old and a student at the University of Cape Town, went to the post office there. She desired to retrieve a package that she had been anticipating receiving. In spite of the fact that she had received a message indicating that her package was ready, the post office attendant, Uyinene Nel, who worked at the Kleranche post office, informed the young woman that she would have to come back at a later time in order to retrieve her package because it was not yet ready for collection. Uyinene had originally intended for the post office to close at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but Uyinene was unaware of this fact. He then waited for Uyinene to return after he informed his colleague that she might go sooner than she had planned. The entrance to the post office was locked behind them, but Uyinene allowed her to enter when she arrived at the post office. He was able to subdue Uyinene and then proceeded to sexually assault her before attempting to strangle her. After his attempt to kill her by strangulation was unsuccessful, he proceeded to strike her over the head with a weight of 4.4 pounds, 2 kilograms. It was the following morning when he went back to recover her body from the post office where he had left it. He drove to a field in the vicinity, where he disposed of Uyinene's body and then lit it ablaze afterwards. During this time, Uyinene's family filed a missing person report following the fact that she did not return home the following day. The charred remains of her body were found 9 days after she had been reported missing. Uyinene Nel was taken into custody, and he later admitted himself to having committed the murder. The 15th of November 2019, he was given 3 terms of life imprisonment. However, even after completing 25 years of his sentence, he will still be eligible for parole when he is released. Following the tragic murder of Uyinene, there was a significant uproar from the general public, which ultimately led to the closure of the University of Cape Town. As a result of additional demonstrations, President Cyril Ramaphosa made the announcement that sexual offenders will be subjected to more severe sentences. On the other hand, this has not been successful in putting a stop to the wave of violence that is still sweeping across the nation. Number 8. Bokgabo Poo. The murder of Bokgabo Poo, who was only 4 years old at the time, has been going on for close to 700 days as of the posting of this list. It was on October 10, 2022, when the young girl was last seen in Masuleng Park, which is located in Wattville, Benoni. When Leah Koza, a resident of Tamboville, which is located slightly more than a half-mile, 1 kilometer, away from Wattville, was sweeping her yard the following day, she saw something that was protruding from the ground. Upon closer inspection, she discovered that the limb in question belonged to a child, with the toes pointing upward. A body that had been mangled was found just a few meters away from Koza's residence, which brought an end to the search for Bokgabo. 3 weeks after Bokgabo's death, her parents ultimately decided to bury what was remained of their vivacious young girl. It is still unknown what sections of Bokgabo's body are missing. During the time when the burial was being held, a suspect had already been taken into custody for the murder of Bokgabo. At the time of his appearance in court for the murder of Bokgabo, Ntokozo Zikali was out on bail for a rape case that was still unresolved during that time. The charges against him included kidnapping, rape, murder, committing a violation against a corpse, and thwarting the administration of justice. The prosecutor, who represents the state, provided videotape in court that showed Zikali and Bokgabo strolling alongside one another on the day that she went missing. Zikali admitted to the crime, and the state presented the video footage. Additionally, Zikali brought attention to the location where a number of Bokgabo's body parts were discovered. Zikali's confession and all of the evidence that was presented against him were both rejected by the Gauteng High Court in August of 2023, which resulted in the dismissal of all charges against Zikali. The court came to the conclusion that Zikali had been forced to confess and that he had not been given a full reading of his rights when he brought up the scene that was described above. However, Zikali was found guilty of raping a girl who was 9 years old in Tamboville in 2021. This was the case for which he was out on bond at the time of the criminal conviction. He was given a sentence of life in prison. As of this moment, there has been no other person taken into custody for the murder of Bokgabo Poo. Number 7. Tazne van Wyk. On February 7, 2020, Tazne van Wyk, who was 8 years old at the time, left her home in Ravensmead, Cape Town, in order to purchase sweets from a store that was only a few meters away. No one ever saw her again. It was reported by witnesses who saw Tazne on the day before she vanished that she was out walking with a neighbor named Mohaidian Pangaker, who was well known to a large number of individuals in the neighborhood. As a nomad, Pangaker never remained in one location for an extended period of time. When the community finally came to the realization that Pangaker had done something to Tazne, they were unable to locate him anymore. After some time had passed, a larger group of people became aware that Pangaker was hiding out at a school, and they went there straight away to face him. It wasn't until a few days later that Pangaker was really located and taken into custody. Rather than being in Ravensmead, he was now in Cradock, which is located in the Eastern Cape. Although Pangaker protested that he had committed any wrongdoing, it did not take the authorities very long to pull the truth out of him. When the police arrived, Pangaker led them to the location along the N1 highway near Worcester, where he had discarded Tazne's body. It was him who had raped the young girl, beaten her to death, then severed her left hand from her body. The fact that Pangaker had been convicted of crimes in the past, ranging from 1981 to 2004, was quickly brought to light. In addition to sexually assaulting other children, he had regularly beaten and sexually assaulted his own daughter, and he had also sexually assaulted his granddaughter. His daughter and her granddaughter were both victims of his violent and sexually abusive behavior till the year 2019. In the end, Pangaker was charged with 27 different offenses, some of which included kidnapping, murder, rape, incest, and sexual assault. A gas station located close to Worcester was the location where Tazne and Pangaker were seen exiting a vehicle, as captured on video and shown in court. It was clear that Tazne did not exhibit any signs of dread or worry, which indicated that she was unaware of the terrible danger she was in. This was mostly due to the fact that she trusted Pangaker. Over the course of his actions, Pangaker was ultimately sentenced to 9 life terms. However, despite the fact that this will prevent him from roaming the streets, there are still an excessive number of people who are similar to him who are still seeking for their next victim. Number 6. Jerobejin van Wyk. On February 2, 2022, Jerobejin van Wyk, who was 13 years old at the time, along with a couple of his buddies, reportedly made the decision to steal mangoes from Daniel Schmidt, who was 54 years old and lived in Clower, which is located in the Western Cape. It is impossible for these young boys to have conceived of what would take place once they had engaged in their ordinary teenage mischief, assuming that is truly what they were doing. During the visit to Schmidt's property that took place 2 weeks later, the South African Human Rights Commissioner discovered that there was not a single mango tree included within the garden or yard. Despite the fact that the specifics of what took place on that day are still unknown, Schmidt reported to the authorities that he had apprehended the youngsters on his property. After that, he made the decision to pursue them in his bakkie, which is a tiny truck, when they fled. The statement made by Schmidt was that he had hit Jerobejin by accident and then brought him back to his house to provide him with some bread and a cool drink. Additionally, Schmidt stated that he walked back inside his house while Jerobejin was eating, and by the time that he returned outside, the youngster was no longer there. One of Jerobejin's friends, on the other hand, claims that Schmidt ran Jerobejin over with his truck before putting him in his vehicle and driving away to a distant location. Jerobejin was never able to return home. On the same day, his mother filed a missing person report for him, and the following day, a number of locals went out to search for Jerobejin. In a sewer on Schmidt's land, they discovered part of the boy's remains. They came across these remains. There were intestines, an ear, and a kidney among the remnants that were found. After Schmidt was taken into custody, he had to wait for over 2 years before being sent to a psychiatric facility for evaluation to determine whether or not he was emotionally and mentally capable of standing trial. Prosecutors suspect that Schmidt premeditated the murder of Jerobejin, since he assaulted and stabbed him after running him over with his vehicle, as stated in the documents filed in the court. After that, he dissected the boy's body and burnt it, before finally disposing of it in an effort to conceal his criminal activity. The trial for the murder of Jerobejin will now take place between October 14 and November 7, 2024, and Daniel Smith will be the defendant. Number 5. Nadine Terblanche and Ruandre Vorster. When Freddie Stapleberg got home from work on November 27, 2023, he went straight into a nightmare, or at least that was what he first said did happen. In their home in Alberton, his partner, Nadine Terblanche, and her son, Ruandre Vorster, who was 9 years old, had been brutally murdered. According to the allegations, the gardener for the family, Dan Heyer, was responsible for the murders. Upon entering their respective rooms, Nadine and Ruan were found to be covered in bruises and injuries that appeared to be consistent with someone strangulating them. Later on, it was disclosed that the mother and boy had been assaulted as they were in the process of preparing to attend a school event that was a prize-giving ceremony. According to Stapleberg's account to the police, Dan Heyer assaulted him with an axe as soon as he arrived home. After that, he pressed his panic button, which resulted in the dispatch of a security firm that quickly managed to capture Dan Heyer. However, Stapleberg was unaware that a security guard had overheard him telling Dan Heyer that he would draw the money. It should come as no surprise that Stapleberg was arrested on accusations of premeditated murder in a short amount of time. Stapleberg allegedly made a financial commitment to Dan Heyer that he would receive a certain amount of money if he would kill both Nadine and her son. The bail request for Stapleberg has been repeatedly denied ever since he was arrested. In addition, the inquiry into the crime continues to be delayed for more time. At this time, it is known that Stapleberg has 3 children, an estranged wife, and a custody battle with his wife. He is using his children as leverage to get himself out of jail. His most recent attempt to secure bail involved his asserting that he is obligated to provide for his family. Another thing that he is complaining about is that he is not getting his prescribed medication while he is incarcerated. On August 29, 2024, he attempted to post bail but was unsuccessful. Number 4. Joslin Smith. A child named Joslin Smith, who was 6 years old at the time, was reported missing from the Middle Post informal colony in Saldanha Bay on February 19, 2024. When the police originally arrived, they were under the notion that Joslin's mother, Kelly, had dropped her off at Jack and Apollos, her boyfriend, before going to work. There is a theory that she did this because Joslin was not feeling well on that particular day. After some time had passed, Kelly stated that she had arrived home from work to discover that her child had gone missing. In addition to this, she stated that Apollos informed her that Joslin had gone outside to play with his buddies and had not returned. After searching the region for an hour, the couple ended their search and subsequently reported Joslin missing. For the purpose of assisting the police in their search for Joslin, a large number of friends, neighbors, and members of the community came out. During the course of the search, which lasted for several days, search dogs, drones, and the Marine unit were all utilized. A number of articles of clothes were discovered in an open area on March 2nd. It was clear that blood had soiled the garments. Almost immediately after that, Another pile of garments was found in a sewer that was located behind a high school in the area. A baby blanket, a blue fleece pullover, and a little rucksack were among the items that were found upon finding. DNA analysis was performed on each and every item. However, the findings indicated that none of them belonged to Joslin. When Joslin was being searched for, people came from all across the Western Cape region to assist in the search. There was speculation that Joslin had been kidnapped and taken aboard a Panamanian ship that had departed from the Saldanha Bay harbor just a few days after the mysterious disappearance of the young child. There was no result from this. When everything was going on, Kelly and Apollos both broke down in tears when being questioned on television, and it appears that both of them went through a lie detector test. Following that, at the beginning of March, Kelly, Apollos, and 2 other individuals were taken into custody in connection with Joslin's disappearance. During the course of the investigation, one of the 4 accused admitted that they had sold Joslin to a Sangoma for R20,000, 1,100. For the purpose of muti, or ceremonial sacrifice, the Sangoma desired Joslin. Since that time, the 4 individuals who are being accused have made multiple appearances in court, but each time the case has been given a postponement. At this time, there is no additional information available regarding the whereabouts of Joslin, or whether or not she may still be alive. Additionally, Kelly is expecting her 4th child, which marks her 4th pregnancy overall. Both of her other children have been removed from her custody by Child Protective Services, and they are currently in a secure location. The matter has not yet been resolved, and it is anticipated that it will be resumed on September 16, 2024. Number 3. Marolien Schmidt. An assault took place in the early hours of Women's Day, August 9, 2023, in the residence of Marolien Schmidt, who was 40 years old and popularly known as the Pink Physio. The incident took place in her Richmond Hill residence in Gqeberha. Glass shattered, and Marolien, who was screaming, was heard by the neighbors. Although they moved quickly and took her to the hospital, it was already too late for her to be saved. The killer of Marolien was apprehended by the police in a time frame that was less than 24 hours. Simsolele Zitshu, who was convicted of murder and robbery in the past, was accused with housebreaking and murder once more. He is currently 31 years old. He had stabbed Marolien in the back and upper body, but he had just taken her mobile phone, which he then sold for R600, 33 Saur. Before settling on Marolien's residence, Zitshu explained that he had been searching for a place to break into before he made his decision. During the time that he was allegedly in the midst of taking the television, he observed Marolien approaching him, and a light switch that was turned on. Zitshu asserted that Marolien had threatened him, and that she has a great deal of strength. Then, in order to get away, he stabbed her. A sentence of life in prison was handed down to Zitshu for the crime. When Marolien was killed, Zitshu was on parole, having previously served some time for his previous crimes. He had been out on parole for some time. Before she passed away, Marolien had lived in her house for 13 years, during which time she had never had any feelings of insecurity. She ran the Ironman distance and was cherished by her family, friends, and the community in which she lived. Number 2. Ditebogo, Jr. Phalane. During the morning of May 10, 2024, Ditebogo Jr. Phalane, who was 5 years old at the time, hurried outdoors to see his father, who had just returned to their family home in Soshanguve. The fact that Ditebogo's father was being kidnapped by a bunch of heavily armed men in their driveway is something that Ditebogo could not under any circumstances have known. As soon as the young child approached his father, one of the men spun around and shot him without hesitation. The father of Ditebogo hurried his son to the hospital, but the boy passed away as he was being transported there. It had only been 5 days since his mother had given birth, and she was holding her newborn baby in shock as she received the word that her oldest kid had passed away while she was holding her newborn baby. Not long after that, the individual who had shot Ditebogo, along with 3 other individuals who had participated in the hijacking, was taken into custody. The perpetrator of the shooting was free on bond at the time of the incident, having been charged with further violent crimes prior to the shooting. Due to the need for additional investigation, the matter has been put on hold. On the 7th day after his death, Ditebogo was laid to rest in the cemetery. In light of the fact that yet another close-knit family had to bid goodbye to their kid, the funeral ceremony was an emotionally charged and heartbreaking event. Ditebogo had a smile that could brighten any place he entered, and he believed that one day he would be able to call himself a lawyer. As is the case with a great number of other victims, this young child will never ever have the opportunity to accomplish his aspirations because of yet another senseless act of violence. Number 1. Deveney Nel. While they were on a camping trip together with their different families in the year 2020, an unknown teenage male from the Overberg in the Western Cape managed to entice a girl who was 11 years old to stay away. For the purpose of drawing photos of the surrounding area, he suggested to the girl that they go to a hill in the vicinity. It was almost 8 o'clock when the lad made his way back to the encampment, but the girl did not. The girl's mother did not waste any time in beginning her search for her daughter. The unfortunate thing was that she discovered her asleep and covered in blood among the reeds in a river. Barbed wire was wrapped around her neck and face, preventing her from drowning. This was the only thing that saved her life. The girl reported to her mother that the boy had sexually assaulted her verbally when she came to. During the confrontation between the mother of the girl and the mother of the boy revealed that her son was described as a problem child. Due to the fact that the youngster, who was 13 years old at the time, was brought before the court, the matter was eventually dropped after he was evaluated by a psychiatrist. Due to the fact that both the perpetrator and the victim were under the age of 18, the National Prosecuting Authority of South Africa chose not to comment on the specific case. On the other hand, the state prosecutor made a request that the youngster be enrolled in a program that provides alternative treatment for sexual offenders. This did not take place. Both a clinical psychologist and a psychiatrist expressed concern that the young man will commit additional offenses and engage in acts of physical violence. Nevertheless, the case was dropped, and the young man did not face any consequences as a result of his activities. The mother of Deveney Nel, who was 16 years old at the time, filed a missing person report on August 6, 2024, when her daughter did not return home from school after participating in a sports day. On the next day, the body of Deveney was discovered in a storage area of the high school that she had attended. A sharp item had been used to stab her multiple times when she was attacked. Deveney is also suspected of having been raped by the police. However, there is no evidence to support this suspicion at this time. The same young man who sexually assaulted the child when she was 11 years old in the year 2020 was taken into custody on August 16th. Following his attendance at a memorial service for Deveney, he was taken into custody not long after. In addition to this, it was alleged that he actively participated in the hunt for Deveney when she was still missing. The fact that he is still a minor prevents him from being identified, despite the fact that he is now 17 years old. It was on August 19th that he made his appearance in court, and the case has been moved to September 18th for further consideration. In the event that the boy's initial transgression had been dealt with, it is possible that Deveney would still be alive today. However, just like in a great number of other instances, the system betrayed her. These stories are more than just tragic tales. They are a glimpse into the harsh reality faced by too many in South Africa. As you finish this video, remember that behind every statistic is a person. A life cut short, a family left in pieces, a future stolen. At Creepshow, we bring you stories that demand to be heard, stories that challenge us to confront the darker truths of our world. If you found this video thought-provoking, please like, share, and subscribe. Let's not turn away from the suffering. Let's raise awareness and maybe, just maybe, make a difference. Thank you for watching and stay safe.